Dobro večer, dragi gledatelji, dobrodošli još jedan na jedan. Prije nego što najavim gosta, kazati ću razlog zašto sam pozvao upravo ovog gosta. 8. i 9. u Auschwitzu će se održati komemoracija, bit će visoka izaslanstva, predsjednici parlamenta, ministri obrazovanja, dakle zemalja Europe. Ići će naravno i hrvatsko izaslanstvo i Sabora, ali i iz Ministarstva obrazovanja. I pozvao sam tim povodom, u Krakovu će biti jedan simpozij o važnosti edukacije o Holokaustu. Tim povodom sam pozvao jednog od vodećih, zasigurno jednog od 2-3 najutjecajnija rabina Europe, glavnog rabina Nizozemske, Binjomina Jacobsa. Gospodine rabine, dobrodošli. Ja ću vas zvati tijekom emisije Rabi. Dobrodošli u Hrvatsku. Ne znam, jeste li prvi put u Hrvatskoj?
It's the first time and I hope will not be the last time.
Hvala vam lijepo. Čuo sam da je dobra hrana, pa evo počevši od toga, drago mi je da vam se Hrvatska svidjela. Kako mi ne znamo puno o vašoj obitelji, a priča je izuzetno egzotična i zanimljiva, možete li malo kazati vaša obitelj, dakle stara nizozemska obitelj, tamo negdje oko 1400 te počinje, dakle, prva bilješka o vašoj obitelji. Jel pamtite iz priča vaše obitelji, a naravno da su Židovi narod knjige i da sve zapisuju, pamte, prenose i tako dalje, pamtite li kako obitelj preživjela sva ta vremena i koja su vremena bila sretna i dobra, a koja su bila teška, naravno ako izuzmemo ono najteže, a to je Shoah, razdoblje Holokausta?
Yes. Of course, you know, from the year 1400 till now is a long time, so there are many stories. But the story what was brought to me by my grandmother was that her grandfather, and she knew, like I knew my grandmother very well, she knew her grandfather also very well. He came to Holland from Poland, and they escaped Poland or Russia, or don't know exactly where what, because of antisemitism. And they escaped to Holland, and he became one of the chief rabbis in Holland. And what I know from my grandmother, that not everybody was very happy with him. She tried to fight him a little bit, you know. That is a part of the job. But what for me is the most important, of course, the stories from my parents. And then I really don't know too much about their life, where they studied and their school time. The main thing was, when I was a little boy, they told me, first of all, we didn't suffer in the war, in the Shoah. We didn't suffer. Only those who went to the concentration camp. We didn't suffer. Number one. And number two, they didn't tell me too much about what happened with them during the war. And now the interesting thing is that they did tell my children. Not to me, but yes to my children. Why is that? I'm second generation, born after the war, in the shadow of the war. Everything was before the war and after the war. Everything. So a lot of our parents, in general I'm speaking, they were, you know, they suffered. Even if they were not in the concentration camps, they still suffered. Hiding was not so easy, was not so pleasant. My father didn't see, was under the floor for 2 years and 8 months, hidden. Now, when they survived, they promised, it was a condition that their children, my generation, are not allowed to suffer. Never. Now, so we are brought up, and I have no complaints about my parents, don't misunderstand me, but since I'm working in psychiatry, I met a lot of people who do have problems with it. If you are brought up overprotected, there's no good. Sometimes you have to fall down the stairs, and sometimes you have to become ill, and you should be sometimes to come too late in school. My generation had to be perfect because they suffered. We're not allowed to suffer anymore. And let me tell you a little thing. My father and my mother both, when I was a little boy, they always told me, don't worry, it will never happen again. But I didn't know what I should worry about or not worry about. Yeah? I didn't understand really what it means it will never happen again. And then when I was a teenager, my father warned me and told me, make sure you always have 8,000 gulden in your house, because you never know, it might be you have to escape. And before he died, he told me, be aware, it could happen again. And if I tell this story, what happened to me, to other people of my generation, they all say, ah, they all have the same story.
Vi ste sad spomenuli bolnicu u kojoj ste radili. Uzeo sam moj papir da nađem njezino ime, ali vi ćete bolje ga izgovoriti, jer nemam nikakove predstave zapravo o nizozemskom, ne govorim taj jezik. No, ono što je zanimljivo jest da je to jedina bolnica u Nizozemskoj, dakle, koja je židovska bolnica, i ta bolnica je imala pacijente, ne samo ljude koji su, dakle, proživjeli taj strašan period i užas, dakle, Holokausta, nego sljedeću generaciju. Tu su dva pitanja vrlo zanimljiva. Vi ste radili dugo sa tim ljudima i zapravo rekli ste mi da je to jedan od najsretnijih ili najsretniji period vašeg života. Reći ćete nam i zašto. No, ono što je zanimljivo jest da su, eto ovoga, ta dva aspekta. Jedan, da su ti ljudi imali trajne posljedice nakon zapravo rata i oslobađanja, i da samo oslobađanje po sebi nije, dakle, završilo i okončilo njihov užas. A sa druge strane, impakt, učinak Holokausta se prenio i na sljedeću generaciju. Koji su to učinci, kako to izgledalo?
The hospital is called the Sinai Center, and it is the only Jewish psychiatric hospital in Europe. It existed already before the war. It's not founded because of the Second World War. But after the war, in 1943, all patients with the doctors and nurses were put on transport and killed in Auschwitz, all of them. Not even in the gas chambers, no. So thrown into a pit and put oil on them, and so burned alive. Now, nobody was left anymore. And after the war, then it was refounded. We started it again. I always say, there we had the patients, the people who did and did not survive. By example, a shower was not allowed in our hospital, because it shows the gas chambers. And the nurses were not allowed to walk around with boots, because the Germans used to walk around with boots. And nobody was allowed to have a pyjama with stripes. So those people are traumatized. I'm saying something very traumatized. So traumatized, they became ill. Now, not everybody becomes ill, but I'm going to say something what, please forgive me, it's not meant as an insult. But if someone survived the concentration camps and he stayed normal, he is abnormal. It cannot be that a normal person goes through such an undescribable suffering, and then it doesn't touch him. He stayed the same before as after. Then he's not normal. Now, we try to help. And the problem with them is, very often, after the war in Holland, there was no help. There was no support. The Jews who came back had to start working like dogs, because they had no money anymore. Working. And then they're 65. They stop working. And then they start thinking about what happened in the war. At that age, you see people, they can't sleep anymore. So you wake up screaming in the middle of the night. Because, by day you have your brain, in charge of your body. But in the night, if you're tired, the emotion is stronger than your intellectual capacities. So that's what happens. And if you don't sleep, and you wake up screaming and screaming, because you're scared and you think the Germans are coming again, then, medication, therapy, but
Zašto ste kazali, rekli ste mi, dok smo se vozili pričajući upravo o tome, periodu vašeg života, da vam je to ipak najsretniji period života?
Yeah. For me, it is the best. I'm happy when I started working there. How I started is not so important, but I was supposed to work there because I became the rabbi, the local rabbi from the town, and it was agreed if the rabbi from that town also has to work in that hospital. I didn't want to work in a hospital. People are crazy. What can I do for people who are crazy? That's the way I thought. But the longer I was there, I understood how important it is to help people. You know, if a rabbi, I'm on television now, so I get applause because of speak so nice. If I work in the hospital, I don't get applause. So for me, myself, it's important to realize world life is not only about applause and compliments. There are serious things in the world. So this for me myself important. And there's another thing, you never get thank you from those patients, because if you do help them, as you do get back into society, they'll never ever say hello to me, because they feel ashamed that they knew me from the hospital, because, you know, if someone's a psychiatric patient, it is a shame. It's not. But people do look down at people with a psychiatric problem. And I'm fighting against that. So I like it to work there. It'd be better if it was not needed. But since it's needed, I think it's good for me, it's good for everybody to realize what's life about.
Kazat ću samo par informacija kad već govorimo o tome. Vi ste to radili unatoč tome što ste bili glavni rabin Nizozemske, a to ste poslali zapravo na nagovor za glave Chabad Lubavića. A prije toga ste studirali 8 godina u Parizu, dakle, rabinske studije. Studirali ste u SAD-u i studirali ste u Izraelu, gdje vam je glavni rabin Izraela zapravo udjelio rabinsko zvanje. Evo da vas malo upoznaju naši gledatelji. Kazali ste malo prije kako je generacija vaših roditelja propatila taj period u Nizozemskoj Holokausta strašno. Mi nešto znamo o tome po izvještajima, izvješću Dane Frank i tako, ali to se više pretvorilo u popularnu kulturu. Ono što je užasno zapravo, što se pri svemu tome zaboravlja, je prva elementarna činjenica da 80% židovske populacije Nizozemske je bilo naprosto odvedeno u logore. Mi kad ovdje govorimo o Nizozemskoj, znate, iz naše hrvatske, balkanske, kako god hoće se niko ne uvrijedi, ali ove jugo-istočno-europske perspektive, mislimo, Nizozemci, to je jedan tolerantan narod, snošljiv, kulturan, demokratičan, open-minded. Kako se to moglo desiti samo 2-3 naraštara prije?
Yeah, that's a good question. The Jews in Holland were very well integrated, not assimilated, integrated, a part of Holland. And in the First World War, Holland stayed neutral. So they thought it will not happen to Holland. Holland will be neutral again. But then it did happen. And then they thought that Hitler is against the Polish Jews and the Russian Jews and the German Jews, but not, we are Dutch. It can't happen to us. So in the beginning, very sly, nothing happened. So he looked, okay, nothing happens. Okay, after a few months, was not allowed anymore to do the ritual slaughter. Okay, so you won't eat meat. Yeah? And then you're not allowed to go in the train anymore. Okay, you go by the tram, whatever. Very slow he built up. So what happened, don't misunderstand me, I'm against Anne Frank. I don't mean against...
Ne, ja sam sam rekao u jednom trenutku da je to postalo tako već popularni mit, a sve što se na taj način...
No, I understand. I say I'm against Anne Frank. What do I mean? In the Anne Frank story, what happened, yeah, it were the Germans who tried to kill and the Dutch who tried to save. Yes, my parents were saved by non-Jewish Dutch people. But the 80%, so I was brought up with a very big respect for non-Jewish people. They saved my mother's life, yeah? But the 80% who were killed, they have no children to speak. And so slowly it becomes clear in Holland, 5% of the Dutch population was collaborating with the Germans, with the Nazis. 5% was fighting them, and 90%, 9-0, just let it happen. And that is very, very scary, because such a thing can happen everywhere and any time again. Not only towards Jews, because, 6 million Jews were killed during the war. Everybody knows. But it started with 6 million Jews, but in the whole amount of people who were killed, who died, was 64 million. It started with the Jews. So I'm very worried that what happened then, that the crowd goes in the wrong direction, could happen again today. And I think I feel the obligation to speak about it. Yes.
Rabi, vi ste radili u psihijatrijskoj bolnici i rabin ste. Još nešto što treba objasniti našim gledateljima. Rabin nije svećenik u klasičnom smislu. Rabin je, dakle, netko tko je u zajednici autoritet, tko tu pomaže, tko je moralna instanca. Dakle, u jednom smislu, dakle, ste i moralno, ali i znanstveno-psihijatrijski kompetentni da odgovorite na ovo pitanje. Kako je moguće da sav napredak civilizacije nas ostavlja moralno intaktnima u našem, dakle, biću i da je Holokaust moguć? Mi ne trebamo o tome spekulirati. 70 godina nakon Auschwitza, Dachauova i ostalih logora imali smo Srebrenicu. Ovdje. Dakle, to što kažete da bi se to moglo desiti ponovo, događa se u Nizozemskoj na vašim stadionima. Zazivaju se ponovo plinske komore za Židove. Kako je to moguće da niko ništa ne uči iz prošlosti, iz povijesti?
I studied a little bit history, and I think there's one law, what I'm convinced that's 100% true, and that law is that people never learn from history. It always repeats itself. And when we were more, just after the war, then everybody understood, we don't want this to happen again. But then you move forward, and what happened becomes history. And history is nice to learn about. But to project it on your own life and your own way of thinking is more complicated. So, okay, in the stadiums they're calling about Jews this, Jews that. They don't know what they say, but they don't know what they say. Even if you don't know what you say, it changes you. I had a few years.
Ne znaju što govore, ali otkud ta pobuda? Zašto baš govore to? Mislim, mogli bi uzvikivati bilo kakav drugi uzvik, ali otkud u jednoj Nizozemskoj koja je, ipak nama uzor zemlja po mnogo čemu, možda gledatelji ne znaju. A to su nevjerovatne skandiranja tako ogavnih zazivanja ponovno plinskih komora, da sam ja neki dan kad sam o tome slušao u Briselu na jednoj visokoj konferenciji europarlamentaraca i predstavnika Europske komisije u susretu sa liderima židovskih zajednica Europe, ostao zapanjen. Ne da nisam vjerovao, sam vjerovao, mislim, naravno tom izvješću, ali ostao sam zapanjen. Kako je moguće, dakle, da ti mladi ljudi koji imaju 20 godina ponovo skandiraju, ovaj put anticionistički zapravo inspirirani, Židove u plinske komore?
First of all, it's not only in Holland. I'm speaking of Holland because I'm Dutch, but it is in the whole of Europe. Antisemitism is a virus. And today we get confronted with COVID. But, finally we will know how to deal with it. Antisemitism is a virus, what is the whole time different mutations. In the time from the Crusaders, we killed Jesus. And therefore, we were allowed to be killed. In the Middle Ages, we were guilty because of all kinds of diseases going around. Jews were guilty. Jews had done it. My parents had the wrong race. and I'm a Zionist. If it's true or not true, yeah, it's not important. I am a Zionist. And Zionist is terrible. I met a person, he came to my house from Syria, a refugee, and he told me he was brought up with the knowledge you have to kill Jews. But he didn't know if it are people, animals, or things. He didn't know what it was. But if you get brought up with certain ideas, with hatred, the former chief rabbi of Israel, I heard him once telling it to people, asked him, when do you think there will be peace in the Middle East? He said, as long as millions and millions of school books there's created hatred against Jews, you can't have peace. And I think therefore it's very, very important not to wait till it is too late. Education, education, education.
Mislite da to pomaže?
I'm sure it will not destroy, kill antisemitism, because it's a virus which will always stay, but at least we try to minimalize it.
Hajmo napraviti tu mapu Europa, dobro ste kazali sami, naravno da to nije nikakav privilegij u ovom negativnom smislu nizozemske danas. Ono što se malo zna jest, iako recimo u Hrvatskoj ja pokušavam na neki način senzibilizirati publiku, da je taj antisemitizam uzeo maha do tih razmjera da recimo glavni rabin Barcelone govori zajednici napustimo ovaj grad je izgubljen za nas. Netanjahu prije 2 godine pozvao Židove iz Francuske da napuste Francusku, da idu za Izrael. Iz Francuske se Židovi masovno iseljavaju, što za Izrael, što recimo velika većina tamo prema Majamiju, ogromna zajednica, dakle u SAD. Kako izgleda ta slika Europe? Ljudi se nevjerojatno puno iseljavaju. Mi o tome gotovo da eto i ne znamo.
Therefore, it's good we're sitting here and can speak about it. And therefore, it's also important that rabbis are not only religious. Judaism is not religion, it's a way of life. And therefore, it's important, I think, that the rabbis have contact with government like me in Holland. And I know there's here a very nice rabbi who is, you know him very well. Yeah. And he's from Chabad rabbi. And I think he should also be more connected with government in order, first of all, in order the people will know what happens here, what happens in the world, in Europe, with anti-Semitism. On the other hand, we also like to participate. We don't convert. We don't think non-Jews have to become Jewish. But we like to participate and support and be a part of the society in what we are living.
Da, Rabbi Penny Zaklas, recimo, radi puno.
Yes, Rabbi Zaklas, I know him. He's a he's a rabbi who really wants to give and wants to help. And I think it's important. But now what you asked me, how can it be that in Spain, the rabbi says, leave, move, go away.
Iz Barcelone, pazite.
And Netanyahu called upon French Jewry in general about European Jewry, leave. What was my answer? I was asked by, a journalist comes, puts a microphone in front of you, then you can't say, you have to think about it and ask advice what to answer. It doesn't exist. So I answered like this. I'm very, very happy today Israel exists. My parents had no place where to go to. I could go to Israel if it gets too scary in Europe. But if I go, I'm going to decide myself. And I won't leave Europe, where we've been for ages. From the year 1400, I'm in Holland. I'm not going away because I'm scared. I'm not scared. Hamas will not throw me out of Europe. I will stay here. And I think it's very important for Europe also. The whole culture in Europe is based on the Jewish-Christian base. That doesn't mean what is very easy to happens a lot in a lot of countries. The Islam. First of all, you can't speak about the Islam. There are a lot of... the most people are killed by ISIS are Islamic people. Number one. Number two, in Holland, one of the prominent leaders from government told me once, anti-Semitism today in Holland is 98% the refugees from the Islamic countries. So I asked him a very stupid question. During the Second World War, where 80% of Dutch Jewry was killed, there was no Islam in Holland.
To je bilo moje pitanje, odmah postavljam pod pitanje. Koja je struktura tog antisemitizma u Europi? Je li to taj stari, perenirajući antisemitizam ili, naravno, ima jasno i ovu motivaciju novopridošlog sa migrantima kad govorite o Hamasu, ali u kojoj mjeri mi danas zapravo alibiramo naš stari, dobri antisemitizam, dobri ovo, naravno, pod navodnim riječima, sebe želimo vidjeti dobrima, a prebacujemo krivnju isključivo na islam.
Okay. Like I said, it is a virus what is changing the whole time, a mutation. So, let's say 30 years ago, a person could be anti-Zionistic, but not anti-Semitic. But today, it became the same. Because if it is like that today, that you can be anti-Zionist and not anti-Semitic, there should be also anti-Semitic people who love Israel. And that we don't see. It became the same. And why? Recently, I asked one of the former president of the chamber in Holland, the parliament, I asked her, I told her, listen, I'm worried. Yeah, anti-Semitism is growing. She said, wrong. It's not true at all. I said, no. It hasn't gone away. It was just invisible. But she told me straight after the war, when she was going to school, she still was taught, she went to Catholic school, Jews killed Jesus. And when she was about 20, she had a Jewish boyfriend. She's not Jewish, of course. And her parents didn't accept the boyfriend because he was Jewish. It never go away, but that doesn't mean we have to sit and lean backward and just let it happen. We should fight it, and I do think that education is very important. Yeah, young children, there was a group, it's interesting what happened. A few years ago, there was a Islamic social worker. He took in a television program some Islamic boys from 1920 who were, hanging around in the streets doing nothing. And I wanted to speak with them about anti-Semitism. What those boys said was unbelievable. Yeah, of course we understand that Hitler killed little Jewish babies because you have to kill them. It was a terrible thing what happened there on television. So it was so scary that the social worker, the maker of the program, who did it just in order to bring tolerance, had to hide himself because he tried to kill him, to change him. What happened then? In the same town where this was taking place, in the same town there was an organization called Romano. Romano is a guy, older guy. He used to take children from in the holidays from poor families and make with them a trip on bike, 10 days. He took those 150 children with their leaders, about 180 people, youngsters, from different kind of backgrounds, all colors and all religions, all from social low families. He took them during that holiday, biking holiday, one day to Westerbork. Westerbork was the former Doorgangslager concentration camp in Holland, where all Dutch Jews were brought over there, from there to the concentration camps to be killed, Auschwitz and Sobibor. And I was asked to give there a talk. Here come the children, 150 children. They put away the bikes, so all got the flower in the hand, and we walked through the path, through the concentration camp, to the end where's the monument. And I was supposed to give there a speech, but I didn't. I didn't give a speech. I just spoke with them, asked them, what happened here? Do you know what happened? We spoke with each other about an hour. And after that hour, half of the group was just crying. Those children will never, ever be racistic or anti-Semitic anymore. That's what I mean, education. Not from a book that doesn't work.
Rabi, Ja sam puno puta slušao o ugroženosti Židova posljednjih desetljeća, naročito ponovo u zapadnoj Europi. Naročito u zapadnoj Europi. To mi je bilo potpuno nevjerojatno. Iako, znate, boraveći u Berlinu to posljednje desetljeća, dosta sam tamo prisutan, naravno da vidimo osiguranje stare sinagoge i tako dalje, svih objekata koje se vezuju Židove. I to mi je nekako bilo, ajde, normalno u Berlinu. Ali, evo, boraveći u Briselu, na tom skupu, a i sam sam član jednog odbora kojem ste vi na čelu, o čemu ćemo ubrzo govoriti, shvatio sam da je ta nesigurnost enormna. Koliko se vi bojite, ali možeš ti odgovoriti, u redu, ja sam u drugačijoj poziciji, ja se ne bojim, ali koliko se prosječni čovjek, Židovi Europe, boje za svoju fizičku sigurnost danas? U tim našim prekrasnim velegradovima, izgrađenim, punim tehnologije, okrenutim 21. stoljeću, ne znam, artificial intelligence, IT industry, ovo, ono, a na drugoj strani, eto, Židovi se osjećaju naprosto fizički, egzistencijalno nesigurno.
Yeah. If you come to my house, there are 7 police cameras around my house because they threw in my windows. And if I go somewhere and give a speech in public and it's been announced, I have to inform a special department of the police where I'm going, what I'm going to do, and how much publicity. It's great, it's protecting me, but it is unacceptable. It's needed. What can we do? So education, there's something else. A few weeks ago, the people from Afghanistan came to Holland, refugees, so brought, to Holland, those who were helping and working with the Dutch army in Afghanistan. And then there was a protest from non-Jewish people that we don't want them here. I was shocked. Before the Second World War, when Jews from Germany tried to escape to Holland, to escape the gas chambers, Holland closed its borders. So for me, we should open the borders for everybody who is in need. Of course, we have to make sure we don't bring in terrorists. But there's one very important thing. We give them food, we give them a place where to stay, we give them a place where they can wash themselves, but we don't give them education. Yes, Dutch, but they are coming from countries where antisemitism is normal and women are utensils. What are we doing to give them a different education? Of course, they are allowed to continue their life with their religion. Of course, of course, of course. But certain things are unacceptable. And if we don't do that, and we don't, then don't be surprised that in 10 years' time we have a huge crowd who are very anti-Semitic and are looking down at women as utensils. So we, the Dutch, are ourselves guilty if we don't foresee this problem. And why politicians don't want to interfere and put that on, they make it as an obligation. You're allowed to stay here if you learn the language, but also if you accept tolerance. You're allowed to have different opinions, but at the end, the other one is allowed to be and continue his life the way he wants to. Why are the politicians don't do that? Because I'm afraid that they're thinking in a few years' time, they are Dutch, they will be voting also. If I correct them now, they won't vote on me.
Rabi, vi ste što bili u svom životu, bili ste dakle na čelu zapravo židovske zajednice Nizozemske. Da ne nabrajam sve vaše funkcije, spomenut ću samo jednu u posljednju 21. Dakle, sada, u ovoj godini, postali ste predsjednik odbora za borbu protiv antisemitizma European Jewish Association, dakle, europske udruge židova. I recite mi, kako je sam dakle, sam na čelu, dakle, onog dijela toga odbora koji se bori protiv antisemitizma ili zadužen za borbu protiv antisemitizma u jugoistočnoj Europi, na što sam nevjerojatno ponosan jer, budući da nisam Židov, tako prihvaćanje od strane Europske asocijacije Židova Europe i rabin Margolina, vas i ostalih mi je vjerojatno najveći životni kompliment, na čemu zahvaljujem. Recite mi koji je program, ili recite našim gledateljima, koji je program rada te asocijacije?
May I interrupt?
Da, izvolite.
You say you're honored that you are allowed to be a part of a Jewish group who's combating antisemitism. Antisemitism is not a Jewish problem, it's a non-Jewish problem. So I am honored to be in your organization and not the other way around.
Da, hvala vam lijepo. Iako, naravno, vi dolazite iz Ljubovića Hasidim, dakle, hasidskog pokreta koji je poznat po toj otvorenosti. Tako da je to još jedan razlog više, ali tome ćemo odmah nakon što progovorimo malo o programu, dakle, European Jewish Association.
So we just started with this association, this committee combating antisemitism. We just started with it. And what I think is, first of all, we had a meeting already in Brussels, number one. Number two, we're going to be in next week, 2 weeks' time, we're going to go to Poland and have a look, make a symposium on anti-Semitism. And then a day later, we go to the former concentration camp Auschwitz-Birkenau. That is already very important. We bring politicians over there to show what happened and what could happen again. But I think we have to look into each and every country specific. What are the possibilities? Each country is different. So I think it is very important not to come as a general program. The general program is education. The general program is education together with the local government. But on the other hand, how to educate and what to educate and to whom yes to go, to whom not to go, I think we have to look at each country specific, what is there the best way, how to deal with it. But the goal is education. Show people what can happen if the crowd goes in the wrong direction. How easy that can go. If I have a crowd and I tell to the people, you are all very intelligent people, then you all know what the world-famous Professor Strumpelmacher said, that nobody dares to put his finger, who is Strumpelmacher? I've never heard of him. If you bring it in a very convincing way, people believe it. Goebbels, that was the PR man from Hitler, he was brilliant. He was brilliant. There were a lot of Germans who couldn't accept it, ethical, to kill Jews. And he explained them. He convinced them that it's a very ethical issue to kill Jews. So he's brilliant, he's a criminal. But so easy. People can be convinced and pushed in the wrong direction. And that is scary. 5% in Holland was fighting the Nazis. 5% was really bad. The 90% I'm worried about. What are we doing about the 90%? Hamas we can't change. The terrorists we can't change. They are brainwashed. But not everybody is brainwashed. The most people, 90%, are just following the easiest way. How can we influence them? We can, and we should. And how? Look in each and every country separate, what is the best way how to deal with it.
Spomenuo sam Chabad. Vi ste, dakle, član pokreta engleski, dakle, Ljubovića Hasidim. Pa recite nam više o tome što je, kako mi imamo Chabadi u Hrvatskoj. Prije jedno 15 godina došao je, dakle, gospodin rabin Binyomin zaklad sa svojom suprugom u Hrvatsku. Ovdje je, dakle, Chabad vrlo, razvio i svoju aktivnost, i utjecaj i povelika je to zajednica. Sad se priprema, recimo, velika medicinska pomoć i tako dalje, ali da ne govorim o Chabadu u Hrvatskoj, možda da kažete što je to Chabad uopće, kako je nastao i otkud taj naziv.
In Christianity, the different religions, different groups, have difference in law. They have difference about religious, small different views on specific issues from the religion. The traditional Judaism is one law, one Torah, one Bible. It's one. There's no difference between this group and that group. So what's the difference between one group and the other group? You know, you have a family. In the family, there are 10 children. So all eat, so all play, so all do sports, so all sleep, all go to school. But some children like school more, other ones like sleeping more. And so the same in Judaism. The different groups would have the same principles, the same law, the same Yerushalayim, the same heritage. But I bring it to an extreme. Let's say the world is full with secularization. It goes sometimes much too far. So then I can decide, like Satmar is one of the groups, I built a fence around me. I don't want the conflict. I don't want the dirty things to get into my house, into my family, into my life. That's an approach. You see sometimes that the children can't cope being surrounded by a fence and they go away from the religion. Chabad says, if there's so much problems in the world, so much secularization, so much unethical issues, throw away the fence. Go into the world and try to help. Also sometimes, instead of the rabbi changing the world changes the rabbi. So both are, you can't say this is one wrong and this one is good. Chabad says no fence. Participate. Try to, we have a bit of, soon it will be Hanukkah. We're lighting the menorah, the candle. And then we are supposed to light it in front of the window when it is dark outside, to bring light in darkness. We want to live Jewish. We want to serve God, and we want to bring light in darkness. And that does not mean to convert other people. We don't convert. But we are part of life, of society. We want to bring light in darkness. And everywhere in the world, you see missionaries from Chabad. And I think Croatia is very blessed with Rabbi Zaklas being here, because I know him and know how he wants to bring light wherever possible is darkness. And if you have that contact, you also can fight antisemitism, because we know each other. And because you know each other, you can raise the problem. I can give a phone call to the president of the parliament. Listen, I've got a problem, antisemitism, and you can speak about it. But if I have no contact, I can't bring it either. So it works both sides. We bring light in darkness, and at the same time, there's an opportunity that government will be supportive and think with us together how to solve the non-Jewish problem called antisemitism.
U emisiji sa rabin Margolinom, i on je, koji je na čelu European Jewish Association, razgovarao sam o tome što je zapravo nevjerovatna okolnost i eto, nekako uvijek izdaleka postavljam to pitanje, ali baš me zanima vaš odgovor. A glasilo je pitanje ovako. Je li Holokaust na neki način uspio? O tome sam razgovarao privatno i sa rabi Jacobsom. Jer vidite, u Hrvatskoj recimo se kao Židovi deklarira par stotina ljudi, eto, u Zagrebu i tako. Mi znamo naravno da ih ima više. Ima ih možda ne za nulu više, ali ima ih 2 put, 3 put više. Vidite, to zatomljavanje identiteta je problem. Problem koji je nastao sa Holokaustom. Ljudi se možda osjećaju komfortniji kad svoje djeci kažu pa dobro, malo ćemo se to adaptirati, asimilirati, pustimo mi se tu našu tradiciju. Sinagoge i onako ove stare nema obljene. Ima ih po Zagrebu, naravno i u Žozu, i Bet Izrael, i Habad, i tako dalje. Ali mnogi zapostavljaju i religijsku tradiciju, ali i kompletan svoj identitet. Je li tako širom Europe i je li to veliki problem svugdje u Europi?
course. Because people are scared. Quite often, especially recently, people come to me and they tell me, people from the age of my children, 40, they come to me, Rabbi, my grandmother, who died a few weeks ago, just before she died, she told me we are Jewish. She was scared to tell them because she didn't want their children and grandchildren go to the concentration camps. What can we do about that? I understand people don't want to yes, that are all still the after effects from the Second World War, from the Shoah. I understand. What can we do about it? I think Chabad is doing a lot about that. Yeah, make yourself visible. And once, you know, people, very often people... I had once a very interesting case. There was a person, had a Jewish name. He was called Cohen. And he lived in a small town. He was the only Jew there. He was very anti-Israel. He was anti-Zionistic. And he did not want to have any contact with Jews. What happened? How did I meet him? A friend of his died. And there was the funeral. And this guy comes to me, and I didn't know who it was. I didn't know his name. I didn't know anything about him. And he said, tell me, Rabbi, you should know, I'm against Israel, and the Jewish religion is ridiculous, and where was God in Auschwitz? I don't want to have any contact with you. He was telling me, 3/4 of an hour, he does not want to speak to me. So what does it show? He wants to. If he don't want to speak to me, don't talk to me. A Jew stays always Jewish. So Chabad also is going around to the world. And let's say we're sitting down with this television, people see me, perhaps some people they know they are Jewish, it inspires them. But yes, the after effect from the Shoah are still there.
Tu smo na 2 minute do kraja emisije i vrlo jednostavno pitanje za kraj. Koji je vaš odgovor na taj veliki problem antisemitizma danas i što biste vi savjetovali nas svima koji nas gledaju?
Education, education, education. And know one thing. Sometimes people asking me, are there still miracles? Yes, there are miracles. I am a miracle. Look at me, I'm a miracle. Why? If there would be a professor in history who never heard about the Jewish people, let's say it would exist, and you tell him there's a nation what was in Egypt as slavery, it was spread through the whole world. There was the Inquisition, there were the Crusaders, there was the Jews living in Siberia are white-skinned, the one from Yemen are Negroes, black-skinned. And they're taking over the language and the culture from the town, the place where they're living. They're taking over the clothing of the place where they're living. He would ask his professor, does this nation still exist, these people? He would say no. In accordance with the law of history, Jews don't exist, but they do exist. So on one side, we should know we'll always be there. Jewish people, nation survives always. Just during that time from surviving, a lot of people get killed. And that's what we have to fight together. Be alert, because the crowd can easily go in the wrong direction. And I'm back upon governments, please, be realistic and be aware what did happen in the Second World War could happen tomorrow again.
Hvala vam lijepo na vašem vremenu. Nadamo se i vjerujemo da se to ipak neće ponoviti. Hvala vam što ste došli prvi put u Hrvatsku na moj poziv u ovoj studiju da govorimo o ovako važnoj temi. Nadam se da ćemo se ponovo vidjeti. Drago mi je da vam se svidio Zagreb i Hrvatska već u prvom kontaktu. Rabi Jacobs, hvala vam lijepo i do prvog susreta. Doviđenja. Dragi gledatelji, hvala vama što ste bili sa nama. Gledajte nas naravno i sljedeće srijede. Do tada, doviđenja.